factoring. Okay, this first one is going to be easy. If it starts with 1, it's a piece of cake. X squared plus 3x minus 54. You need to rewrite it as a multiplication problem. So what's going to multiply and give you x squared? That is x and x. Okay, we use this template. What is going to times and give you a negative 54, but add and give you 3. So you go through the factors of 54, and somewhere you got to come across a 9 and a 6. So it multiplies to give you negative 54. One of them's got to be negative, one of them's got to be positive. And it's got to be a negative 6, because 9 take away 6 is 3. So plus 9 minus 3. The next one, 5b squared minus 25b minus 180. You should look at that. It's not going to be as easy as the first, but each of these can be divided by 5. So let's divide each of those by 5, which is the greatest common factor. So always try and pull out as much as you can. So 5, you divide them all by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1b squared. 25 divided by 5 is a minus 5b, and 180 divided by 5, I gotta get my calculator, that's negative 36. Okay, now this part is easy as the first part. So what is going to times and give you a negative 36 and add and give you a negative 5? So you start going through the factors of 36, and you got to come across a 9 and a 4. So it's got to times give you negative 36. One's got to be negative, one's got to be positive. This time the 9 is going to be negative, the 4 is going to be positive, because a negative 9 and a positive 4 is a negative 5. So your final answer is going to be 5b minus 9b plus 4. Okay, these bottom two are like AA4. 3, 10, and 7, they got nothing in common. Let me start the timer here. So they got nothing in common. You can't divide them all by a common factor. We're going to take this 3u squared plus blank plus 7. I'm going to change it from 3 terms into 4 terms. And I'm going to multiply my first times my last. 3 times 7 is 21. 21 is my number. I'm looking, I know that my middle times my middle is going to give me a 21 also. So times this gives you 21, but it's got to add and give you 10. So your template, times give you 21, add give you 10, it's got to be 3 and 7. So I'm going to put, the order really does not matter, 3u plus 7. I put the 3 here because it is next to the 3, and the 7 is next to the 7. So now you're going to group them. Group them, you do 2 of them at a time, and you see what you can divide out. I need to divide out the greatest common factor. So I'm going to divide that by 3u, divide that by 3u, and it is going to be 3u times u plus 1. This next group, you're going to divide them both by 7. 7 times u plus 1. Okay, now in each of the groups, a u plus 1 showed up. U plus 1 times that by 3u plus 7, and that is your answer. And you can always check your answers, because if you distribute them forward, if you times them through and add up your like terms, you're going to get what you started with. So that's a way you can verify you did it right. This last one, 3n to the 4th plus 19n cubed plus 6n squared. Okay, 3 and 19 and 6 got nothing in common, but they've all got some n's. I'm going to divide them all by n squared. So it's going to be n squared times 3n squared plus 19n plus 6. Okay, now, because it does not start with a 1, starts with the 3, I've got to use this approach. I'm going to copy and paste 3n squared. I'm going to break up 19. I'm going to leave 6 alone. And I'm going to times my 3 to my 6. 3 times 6 is 18. 18 is your number. You're looking for something that times and gives you 18, adds and gives you 19. Well, times gives you 18, adds and gives you 19. It's going to be 18n and 1n. Okay. Now you have broken it into 4 pieces. If you've got 4 terms, you need to group them. So I'm going to group them. I'm going to group the first two, 3n squared plus 18n. I'm going to divide them both by 3n. Divide that by 3n. So it's going to be 3n times n plus 6. Okay, the second group, 1 and 1n and 6, they got nothing in common. Divide them both by 1. They got nothing in common, it's 1. So it's going to be n plus 6. And now look, n plus 6 showed up in both groups. So your answer is going to be n plus 6. And your other group is going to be 3n plus 1. Okay, this polynomial has 4 terms, so you need to group them. Let's group these two, divide them both by x squared, divide that by x squared, so it's going to be x squared times 5x plus 1. 30x and a 6, you can group those and divide those both by 6. So it's going to be 6 times 5x plus 1. So now you got a 5x plus 1 in both groups. So 5x plus 1 times x squared plus 6. And easy as that. Okay, these last three are special cases. I think these are your AA5. You need to recognize if it starts with the perfect square and ends with the perfect square, it's actually pretty easy. So 9b squared minus 30b plus 25. Take the square root of 9b squared, and that's 3b and 3b. Take the square root of 25, that's going to be a 5 and a 5. And then because your middle is a negative, it's going to be minus minus. And they get the negative 30 from this. 3b times a minus 5 is a negative 15b. Negative 5 times 3b is negative 15b. Negative 15b, negative 15b is negative 30b. So when your eyeballs recognize that these are perfect squares, they're not as bad as they first look. Okay, 75, that's not a perfect square. 12 is not a perfect square, so that's kind of lame. But you look at it and these are both even. I can divide them both by 2, but that's odd. You can't do 2. You kind of hum and haw, and you should realize that they're all multiples of 3, so you can divide a 3 out of each of them. So it's going to be 3 times 25x squared plus 20x plus 4. And now you like the 25 and you like the 4. So you don't worry about the middle, it's just what it starts with and what it ends with. So it's going to be 5x square root of 4 is going to be 2 and 2, and it's going to be plus and plus. And the 20 is 5x times 2, that's 10x, and 2 times 5x, that's 10x, 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 20x. Okay, the last one is a little different because it has no middle term like these have middle terms. The first is a square, the last is a square, so easy. 4n, square root of 9 is 3 and 3, but it's got to be a negative 9, so 1's plus, 1's minus. And because 1's plus and 1's minus, 4n times negative 3 is negative 12n, and 3 times 4n is a positive 12n, and that zeroes out. You got nothing. So that's why you got nothing in the middle. Okay, speaking of squares, can you create your own perfect square? So if you had a number of your choice, what would you put here? And the formula says so if you're looking at ax squared plus bx plus c, you look at b, you look at the middle, you cut it in half, you divide it by 2, and then you square that. So negative 22 divided by 2 is a negative 11. Now you square that. Negative 11 times negative 11 is a positive 121. You want that to be a 121. If it is a 121, it's a perfect square. So it's going to be p minus 11 times p minus 11. A minus 11 plus a minus 11 is negative 22, but you times them, it's positive 121. So if you write it as a perfect square, it's going to be p minus 11 squared. Odds are not as easy. This odd is 19. If you try and cut an odd in half, it's not going to work. So 19 halves is like 9.5. But now you square it. So you're going to square the 19 and you're going to square the 2. So whatever 19 times 19 is, let's see. Jeez, I'm having a hard time. 19 times 19, 361. 361 on top, 4 on bottom. That is the number you wish was here. 361 over 4. Okay, now, if you have to write it as a perfect square, it's just going to be x plus 19 halves squared. Okay, the bottom two, they're given to you in factored form. You need to change it back to standard form. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. So now you're going to distribute. X times x is x squared. X times 12 is plus 12x. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times 12 is negative 48. Add your like terms. X squared plus 8x plus, I guess, minus 48. Okay, now the question is, that's not a perfect square. You need to change it to the vertex form. Vertex form is ax minus h squared plus k. Vertex form has a perfect square. So negative 48 is bad news. So let's move it over and let's replace it with the number I wish it was. I wish it was. Cut that in half. 4. Square it. 4 times 4. I want a 16 badly. So I'm going to add my own 16, and then I'm going to take it right away, because if I add 16, take it away is adding 0. Adding 0 does not change anything mathematically. So I can write this as x plus 4 squared. Then these two play together. Negative 16, negative, they're like terms, so that's negative 64. So this is the vertex form. X plus 4 squared minus 64. The next one, let's distribute that through. That's going to be x squared minus 5x minus 3x plus 15. So it's x squared minus 8x, and 15 is the problem. So I'm going to just scoot that 15 over. I wish, oh, we just did 8. We know if the middle is 8, then we want this to be a 16. I'm going to add a 16, I'm going to take away a 16. So you cut it in half. 8 cut in half is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. And now this is minus though, so it's going to be x minus 4 squared, and the negative 16 plus 15 is negative 1. And that is the vertex form. Okay, now you're looking at a graph, and then you're looking at an equation. You'll find the graph's going to be a little bit easier. Find the vertex. Vertex is right here. So vertex is, how do you get to that dot? You got to go left 3, and then you got to go down 6. That's the vertex. Line of symmetry. Line of symmetry is where it gets cut in half. So it's x equals negative 3. The y-intercept is where your parabola is going to cross the y-axis. It's going to cross, looks like right here. Y-intercept is 3. Okay, does this have a maximum or a minimum? This vertex is at the very lowest point, and that would be a minimum. The domain and the range. The domain is how far to the left and how far to the right. This is going to go up and left forever, up and right forever. The domain for all parabolas is everything. Negative infinity to positive infinity, everything in between. It's all real numbers. The range varies from quadratic to quadratic. Okay, the range is how far up, how far down. It goes up forever. And at the lowest point, which is the minimum, happens at negative 6. So the range, y is anything as long as it's greater than or equal to a negative 6. Okay, the equations are not as easy. If it's in standard form, we need a is negative 1, b is a negative 6, c is a negative 5. Okay, c, that's a freebie. That's your y-intercept. So your y-intercept is negative 5. That's it. We gotta find axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry, hopefully you recall, is a negative b divided by 2 times a. So it's gonna be a negative b, negative 6 over 2 times a negative 1. So it's gonna be 6 over negative 2. So it's gonna be negative 3. So your axis of symmetry is x equals negative 3. Then we're actually halfway done to finding our vertex, because once you got the line of symmetry, the vertex is pretty easy. So the vertex is going to happen right here at -3 something. We know the x, you just got to find the y. If you know the x is -3, you need to substitute it in for both the x's. So we got negative whatever x was squared minus 6 times whatever x was minus 5. So replace those x's, substitute -3's in their form. And then just punch that in your calculator, do it in your head, something, hit enter. Negative exponents first, -3 squared. -3 times -3 is 9. Take the negative to it, -9. -6 times -3 is +18, minus 5. -9 plus 18 is 9. 9 take away 5 is 4. So your vertex happens right there. Left 3, up 4. Okay, would that be a maximum or a minimum? This A right here is your orientation. Because that's negative, I know the parabola is going to open down. And that would make that be the highest point, which would be maximum. Okay, now we can sketch a graph real quick without too much stress. So if you sketch the graph, the vertex is left 3, up 4, somewhere right here. The y-intercept is -5. Right there, it's going to flip over your line of symmetry. Your parabola is going to look like this. The domain is the same for everything, all real numbers. Your range, okay, the range, it goes forever down, so it goes from -infinity, and it tops out at this point at 4. So the y is anything as long as it is less than or equal to 4. Or it could be -infinity to 4. And it's got to be bracket because it stops on 4. It includes 4. It lands on 4. Okay. Alright. Now. Okay, I'm going to try this on the calculator. And I'm not sure if it's going to record. So I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to stop the recording and create part 2.